People say to show up authentically, and it's like, great, I'm down for that. Wait, how do I do this?
Next step, please. Every time I kind of open that door and share something that I do authentically feel ready to share or ready to open up about if it was something harder, that's actually where I feel a deeper connection.
You might be someone who says, well, I don't want to share everything on social media. I will never ask someone to share all parts of their life. You can create boundaries for yourself and still show up in an authentic way.
What do you see for the brands and the people that are really going to stand out?
I'm so excited to share this because this has been years in the making. I was able to craft what I call the secret sauce 4 quadrants. The secret sauce is
Jera, welcome to Powerhouse Women. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
In literally my fake living room.
I know.
Welcome.
I love these
welcome
tall
to
ceilings. It's awesome.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to have you here for a couple of different reasons, but number one, because I have loved following your journey on social media. And to me, you are such an example of someone who really shows up authentically. I also think, and I know you have feelings about this word authenticity kind of just gets thrown around and no one ever really defines it. So we're going to dig into that today, but I actually just want to hear from your standpoint, what do you feel like makes it so hard for so many of us to show up as our authentic selves, especially on social media?
It is tough. And if I start to analyze this, I think if we just even take social media out of the picture for a moment and we think about showing up authentically in just our everyday lives, that's a challenge. We're constantly, or at least I am, I got a lot of anxiety. I'm an overthinker. So we have the internal monologue going. We are worried about what other people are thinking, how we're sounding, how we're acting. We meet people who we're not familiar with, and perhaps we're a little bit guarded. So even that idea of authenticity in our everyday life, I think is a challenge. Now you throw the digital world into the mix and you're asking people, okay, take your authentic self and translate it into an authentic digital version of you. Whoa, that's a really hard challenge. It's something that's not inherent. And I think that people feel that it should be inherent. You see other people showing up, you scroll through your Reels tab and you scroll through TikTok and it kind of feels like everyone else has it figured out besides you, which then doubles down the frustration and maybe even shame around feeling like you can't show up authentically on social media. And then I think the next level of it is that you hear with social media advice to show up authentically. People say that, show up authentically. If you're a personal brand, if you're a content creator, if you are a service-based business and you are the face of your brand, especially, I do think it still applies to other categories as well.
Totally,
but more so those 3. People say to show up authentically and it's like, great, I'm down for that. Wait, how do I do this?
Next step, please.
Yeah. Like, wait a second, I'm in the game, but how do I actually make this happen? And I find that there's no blueprint for it. And most people aren't actually teaching how to do it. So for all those reasons, it makes showing up authentically and being your true authentic self on social media a huge challenge. It's tough. So I just want anyone listening who struggled with that, you're not alone. This isn't easy. It takes time. It takes practice.
I feel like as you're talking to, something that really hit me is I can relate to this. I feel like I've been on such a personal growth journey over the last 6+ years that what feels authentic for me is always shifting. It's almost like I don't know that I could tell you or give you this resume of like, this is authentic Lindsay.
And that is another great point because it shifts. We as humans evolve and shift. So what was authentic for you 6 years ago may not feel authentic today. And it's also not necessarily tangible either. Like, you can teach how to craft a great hook for a video, or how to choose what hashtags are right, or SEO, or how to edit a video. These are much more tangible things in the social media world. But with all the factors we've talked about, including how we shift as humans, it's almost like a, do you remember those toys when you're little that were like slippery and they had like glitter and liquid in it and it was plastic on the outside and they kind of slip through your hands?
Totally.
I've never thought of that before.
What are they called?
A slippery slidey thing?
Yeah.
Anyways, I've never
Official
thought of that
name.
before, but I almost feel it's like you're trying to grasp this thing and it just keeps kind of slipping out of your hands because there isn't a like solid nature to it in terms of this authenticity thing.
Yes. So, I mean, you've built your career in recent years as a content creator, as a coach for people who want to show up authentically online, want to build businesses online. I'm wondering what's like the common theme that you've seen in the people you've mentored, the companies you've spoken for. What's the story in our own heads that's preventing us from just showing up at all, much less finding our authenticity?
Few things come to mind. I think a really big one is this question of, does what I have to say even matter? Or sort of running parallel to that, someone else is already doing it and they have tons of followers and their business is thriving. What's the point of me doing it too? If I'm in a similar niche, does anyone even care? So it's this constant outside. Well, the narrative lives within us, but it is due to these outside factors. So it really, so much of it comes down to mindset and quieting these voices of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, comparison, because I think that's truly the root of most people who are not showing up because they haven't before, or maybe they were showing up and then they've stopped. No matter what level, I think that's a common thread throughout it all.
Which is the exact same story we tell ourselves. And I hear this so often within our community that is stopping people from taking action in their business. It's just buying into that belief, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, who am I to do this? I mean, I have those thoughts.
Yeah.
On a daily basis.
We all do. That's something that I feel as well. And it's just proof that no matter how short or how long you've been running your business, how many, if you have 0 followers or 1 million, we're all feeling it at different levels. And it doesn't necessarily just live within someone who's a total beginner.
Yeah. I know for myself, and I'm always just going to speak from my own experience because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm asking this for a friend. No, me. It's me.
Go for it.
I'm the problem. It's me. I think a lot of what has gotten in my head, gotten in my own way is like the fear of being laughed at, the fear of being judged. You show up as a professional content creator and you're such a brilliant content creator. The kind of content you come up with, you're just one of my favorite pages to follow because of the creativity. And yet there's got to be some stories behind the scenes of,
oh gosh,
things gone wrong, or just these things that I think people might assume that because your content looks so strong and it's so on brand for you that you must never have these faux pas. I mean, are there any moments that you look back and either cringe or laugh hysterically over like cocktails with friends when you think back to those moments in your career?
There's a couple of things, and I think I'm looking at it both from the lens of how my content is received and feedback, what to say it nicely.
That's a nice way to say it.
That I get from others, and then of course things I've done myself as well. And there's such a scale, like there's things that have been really bad and things that have been wonderful and unique. So one of the first things that popped into my head is how there was this one day, probably in 2020, where I got a DM from someone. And she said something to the effect of, I'm unfollowing you. I can no longer relate to you and your perfect life, which I was really taken aback by because I've really always prided I've always shared the ups and the downs. And I've never, to my knowledge, or never felt that I've put out this aspirational life. I've shared everything in between, the good and the bad. And on the same day, I received a DM from someone saying, thank you for being so authentic, for sharing so many different parts of your life, for sharing the ups and the downs. And it was just the perfect way to encapsulate how you can't control people's perceptions of you. It's going to happen one way or the other. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. You are going to be someone's cup of tea. And going back to what you said about fear, that's always going to be there. But I much rather me or someone else, a client or student, feel the fear and do it anyway, which is one of my favorite mantras, and put themselves out there and potentially get some of that negative feedback. But the upside is that you are inspiring people, you're adding value to people's lives, you're creating connection, you're supporting your business. So that was one thing that popped into my mind.
First of all, why do they need to message and tell us that they're unfollowing?
Yeah.
That's like a thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's happened more than once.
And I really say that, like I'm joking about it. No judgment, but it's a reminder that my friend Aisha has this saying that I've now adopted, because when you're in a growth season, I think a lot of things get projected onto you. And it's just this saying of like, that is not about me. Even just like whatever that trigger is in that moment.
Yes.
You can't actually control that someone is looking at what you've presented to the world graciously, how you've opened your world to people. And their interpretation is, that looks perfect. It makes me feel a certain way. I'm going to take care of myself and unfollow. But on the way out, let me just kind of like
announce it. Yep.
Just slap you across the face.
And to sort of further that a little bit more, something that I try to remember, because the following has happened, is that it's exactly what you said. It's triggering to them. Something's happening in their own life, and something really powerful that's happened at least 3 times now is that someone has followed up, sometimes a week later, one was a full year later, apologizing to me for what they said about XYZ for XYZ reason. And they explained, I reacted that way because all 3 situations were something happening in their life. And that kind of just irked them the wrong way, whatever it is that I shared. So I always try to remember that when I get something negative, that there's probably something happening in their lives to sort of lash out in that way. It doesn't make it hurt any less, but at least it gives a little bit more explanation as to why someone would take that kind of action.
And thank you for saying it doesn't make it feel any better.
Yeah. But just to sort of lighten the mood a little bit, I have a really
you have to have some funny stories, just knowing how hilarious you are.
I was like, I got to tell this one because it relates to what we're talking about. I love when I can take something negative. And usually these are the kinds of things that are negative where it's like, they're not really digging that deep into you. It's just like a one-off random comment. And I can turn it into an inside joke. This is my most favorite thing. My best example of this, I have a couple, but my best example is I posted a video once and it got some traction. And this person comments several things, like several different comments in a row. But my most favorite one was attention hog. However, they spelled hog H-A-W-G. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like, attention hog.
I was going to say, that sounds like a compliment.
I know. I'm like, I kind of like how you spelt it. It's sort of like spiffy. So of course, as I usually do, because it's sort of a form of release to share things that are negative sometimes. And I put that on my stories. Someone DM'd me and said, Jera, you got to make jackets that say attention hog on the back. So I wasn't actually going to do it, but I go on some customization site and I find this cool kind of like bomber varsity jacket. And I have this like scripty font and it says attention hog. And I post it to my stories. I'm like, BRB making jackets. Like, we're going to do this. Well, that's funny already. However, this gal who has a shirt customization company actually created this shirt for me. This is a big black baggy shirt, which I love. And it has this fuzzy attention hog, kind of in like a wavy 70s script.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
On the front and on the back. And so to see the journey of this, like here's this, well, you know, it's not the worst comment, but it's not the nicest. And then I share it with my community. Everyone gets a laugh about the jackets and it turns into this physical manifestation of kind of taking back your power when someone's mean or rude to you. So I just always love that little attention hog moment.
Plus, I mean, bonus business idea in the future. What I love about that is, and this is so true in the Powerhouse women community as well. Number one, if those comments happen publicly, or sometimes, you know, if you share vulnerably, like, hey, this DM, like I'm showing up for all of you. And there were 10 DMs that said you impacted me. And then this one said this. We had someone, and I actually haven't gotten a ton of that. I had a reel that was about our upcoming event that went and got some traction. So it starts just bringing in different eyeballs, people who don't know me, don't know my community. Yeah. And I think these people forget that like real human beings are behind these Instagram accounts. And it was someone who said, does anyone even change, or does anyone actually get transformation out of these stupid events? Something like that, stupid events. Now, it was great content because we were about to close early bird sales. So I screenshotted that and put it on my stories. And I just said, tickets for my stupid event are, and then I just put like # life-changing are, going up by $100. But then what was beautiful, and actually I felt bad for this person for messing with the wrong community, because our community is so connected and even doesn't want to leave that person behind, that there were so many women who had jumped in and said, well, actually, like if you give this a chance, or like, here's what our community is about. I was like, it can turn into this opportunity for your community to actually come closer.
Yes.
And I don't think you have to, you can bond over attacking that person, or you can bond over like, hey, we're going to laugh it off, or we're going to love on each other, and even send them love on their way out the door, because they're probably going to get blocked. But it's interesting to see how something that maybe we fear, getting these negative comments, can build your connection with the people that you're meant to connect with.
Absolutely. And that is what I've seen time and time again, whether it's something kind of on the sillier side, like attention hog, or a situation where perhaps it's something that hurts a lot more and it's a bit more pointed. And that's why I feel like sharing those is that release, as I said, because you're kind of taking that weight off of you, and then you see how your community responds and supports you in that moment, which is a really beautiful thing.
I was so excited to have this conversation with you specifically because in our community, we talk a lot about visibility. Your message, your gifts are meant to be seen in a bigger way. And in order to do that, it does take us showing up. And I think the authenticity piece is so critical because people want to see that version of you. But let's actually make this tangible, because authenticity, no one until now has actually given us like a framework for how to do that. And I know you teach on this in a different way than I've ever seen really done. So I want you to take us into that.
I'm so excited to share this because this has been years in the making. I think first with my own self and showing up as a content creator since 2015. And then since teaching my students since early 2020. And I used to be that person that said, all right, everyone, show up authentically. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. Oh, but Jera, how do we make this happen? And so it was through me showing up over all of these years, but then actually assisting and supporting other people in showing up authentically, that I was able to like craft what I call the secret sauce 4 quadrants. So first and foremost, secret sauce. It is just a cute way of essentially saying showing up authentically.
I love condiments. I'm already bought in.
Yes. Love me some ketchup, sweet chili,
and some secret sauce.
And some secret sauce. Yeah. And it is you. The secret sauce is you. It is your humanness. It is your realness. It is expansive in that it's your past, it's your present, and it can be found in the groundbreaking moments of your life, but it's not always the big groundbreaking moments. It can also be found in the small, mundane, and routine moments of your life as well. So the answer is of the secret sauce, it's you, and it's like wonderfully simple and complex at the same time, because that's what we are as human beings. So how do we take that expansiveness and make it feel tangible for social media? And that's where the secret sauce quadrants come in. So imagine a rectangle, all of its secret sauce, but we're just dividing it up into 4. So we have 1 in each corner, and each corner represents a different type of secret sauce. We have foundational secret sauce. Foundational secret sauce is focusing more on the past than the present. Think of the challenges you've been through, the pivots, the big moments, the achievements, everything, the good and the bad that brings you to where you are today. Then we have the personal secret sauce, and that is more focused on the present moment, who you are right here, right now. Your hobbies, what you do on the weekend, the human outside of the business. It can be the good, like, oh yeah, I like to go to art class and read books, but it can also be what you're experiencing now as well. Maybe your anxiety is really high right now. Maybe you're experiencing some sort of challenge in the present moment. So it's not just the good stuff, but it's the good and the bad right here, right now. Then we have the professional secret sauce. And as this sounds, this is focusing on you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. If you're a bigger group, like a marketing agency, this still applies to you. This is your professional secret sauce as a company. And this is what sets you apart as an entrepreneur, your values, how you approach things, how you see things, basically what makes you stand out within your field or within your niche. Then lastly, we have my personal favorite, the lighthearted secret sauce, which is also as it sounds. And this is the silly, the goofy, kind of also the random things as well.
The armpit farting,
which is part of my lighthearted secret sauce. And I think lighthearted secret sauce is really great for stories. I think we can use trends as well sometimes to allow our lighthearted secret sauce to come through. But for the most part, it's like the silly, it's the lighthearted. Now, the really cool thing about dividing these secret sauces into these 4 quadrants is, one, it makes it tangible. You start to understand, ooh, there's all these different parts of me, past, present, big and small, and now I have a name for it. Not only does it make it more tangible, but it also gives you choice. So you might be someone who says, well, I don't want to share everything on social media. I will never ask someone to share all parts of their life. You can create boundaries for yourself and still show up in an authentic way. So someone might say, I'm cool with foundational and I'm cool with professional. Lighthearted and personal either doesn't feel comfortable for me, or maybe they might feel it doesn't make sense for their business. Like maybe a lawyer says, well, I'm not really going to be sharing lighthearted and personal. That's not a blanket statement for all lawyers, but just an example of someone who might rethink that a little bit. So you can choose 1, 2, 3, or 4 quadrants to your comfort level, as well as what makes sense for who you are and what you do. So that's the high level framework.
Good. You know what I have struggled with, even as you're breaking those down, I can hear the story in my own mind that wants to overcomplicate that because it's very simple.
Yeah.
And speaking of, like, our mutual friend, Lori, is someone who in the past I've been like, hey, can you reflect back to me? Like, what do you think, like, some of my, in this case, secret sauce is? Like, what are the things that when I talk about it, you love to hear? Ask your community what they want to hear in different areas, because I think that's where I stop myself is like, okay, I totally get the quadrants. What are my versions of that? I can't armpit fart, right? But that's, I think, where we can get in our own heads. Because again, we see it in other people. We see their secret sauce, but it's so much harder for me to see my own. Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, let's like tackle foundation for you right now. Foundational, just super high level. We don't have to get too far into it.
Yeah.
But let me give you some examples, because I like to give examples to make it more tangible as well, to get even more specific. So if I were to think about foundational secret sauce for me, and these are not necessarily content ideas, like not necessarily, oh, this is the exact idea I'm going to post.
Yes.
It's more of the general themes. Like think of like these clouds floating around, and then those are the clouds you're pulling from to generate more specific ideas. So some foundational for me, my time as a graphic designer. That was my first job, my first profession out of college.
Selling carpet.
Well, great. Perfect. I love that one. That's like that. I hear that. I go, what? Selling carpet? Like, that's really interesting.
It's not.
Well, it's an interesting pivot.
It is.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
So,
yes.
I see you doing.
No.
Yeah.
I actually know that is. I always joke that I'm like, I can't make that sound sexier.
And
it just is what it is.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. So I'm glad you said that, because I think oftentimes people think, and I'm not saying you think this, just is what I hear from people. I'm not interesting enough. I'm not entertaining enough. This isn't cool enough. It's not big enough, whatever it is. And I find that the connections we make, which is really the true reason of sharing secret sauce, comes from sometimes the smallest and sometimes the most random moments as well. So yes, sharing a transformation or a pivot or a big challenge you've overcome. For example, a big thing for me is my soul cycle journey and all the fear I had to overcome and all the limitations I had, like having zero experience with being a fitness instructor. Like that's a really big one. And well, not to toot my own horn, but I think it is an inspiring story. So I see that as like a really pivotal story to share. But sometimes, you know, this is a random example. I recently repotted some plants. That's not very interesting. That's not very unique. But I shared about repotting this fiddle leaf fig tree, which has like so many issues and is a really tough plant. And people reached out about that. They're like, I have a fiddle leaf. I've been terrified to repot this plant. You know, or some people just have that conversation. Other people are like, you know what? You repotted your fiddle leaf. I'm going to go repot my fiddle leaf. And I'm not saying that that's inspiring, but it's connection. So every single thing, like think of this, you're at the circle, you're at the center of a circle, and this circle has like lines radiating out from it. And every single thing, big and small, is an entry point, is a connection point into you. So it's okay if it's not, or if you don't think it's interesting, or if it's not this huge groundbreaking thing, because sometimes it just simply opens the door to conversation.
So good. Okay. So foundational. Remind us again what the quadrants are.
Yes. So foundational. Next is personal. So that's focusing on you in the moment. Yeah. Mostly not related to work.
Yeah.
So me repotting plants and sharing that on my stories, that could be personal. I tried a cold plunge for the first time earlier this year. I did like a mini vlog about it. Yeah. That is personal. I would say going to the farmer's market or sharing your favorite coffee order. These are all things happening in the moment. Now, there's also not so great things. I've had a really, really challenging year. And so sharing these essentially tragedies this year have been personal, but interestingly enough, in a few years, they'll sort of shift to foundational because they are these big pillars and markers in my life. So that kind of connects things sometimes, like not everything always stays in the same quadrant as well. Yes. There's flexibility there.
That's so brilliant. And I love the examples because those are the moments, the random things, the life things that tend to get the most engagement, tend to really create the most conversations and connection. And that's the whole reason we're using these platforms anyway.
My biggest one, like no one would ever, if you don't know me, no one would ever be able to guess this, but it just drives home exactly what you said. At the end of 2021, everyone was posting their New Year's resolutions. And for whatever reason, I'm cool with people having New Year's resolutions or having words or phrases to what they want the next year to embody. Like if you want that, fully support it. For some reason, I've just never been able to do that myself. It just I don't know, for whatever reason. So me being the kind of goofy person that I am, I recorded myself cutting up some cheese and putting the cheese on a cracker and posted a reel. It's about 8 seconds long. And there I am kind of like dancing. I put the cheese in my mouth. I'm like, my word, this is just text overlay. My word for 2022 is cheese and crackers. Which like, yeah, it's funny, but like people love this. They like went nuts for it. Like, this is hilarious. Like, I love that this is your phrase for 2022. And that was just a moment. However, this has exploded. Like my community knows me for cheese and crackers now. I get at least one cheese meme every single day. Like Cheez-Its put out a shoe with Cheez-Its inside of it, like it's sort of see-through. People are like, you need this shoe. Now get this. This is the pinnacle of this small moment turning into something huge because I still do partnerships and sponsored posts. Yes. And I told my management, I'm like, y'alls, I'm manifesting either a cracker or a cheese partnership for 2023. And I got one with Milton's Crackers and I created a song. It's so good. It's like a little jingle. It's like a music video that I put together, but all because one evening I decided to randomly share about cheese and crackers, continued to do so because it seemed to tickle everyone's funny bone. And then it actually turned into this paid partnership. Like in what dimension does that happen? It's like that. And to me, that just proves that these little moments can be significant.
Yeah. Like you wouldn't even know to put that on a vision board.
Right. cheese and crackers.
Who would have thought?
2022.
Who would have thought? Okay, I love how you talked about like some of the personal stuff that you have been willing to share has been the tough stuff. And there was a reel that it was a reel of you speaking at another event. And I felt so seen when I heard you say the words, "My soul is tired."
Oh gosh.
And I want to hear from your standpoint, how do you even decide when/what to let people in on? Because you are someone who has a very public platform. How do you decide? And for you, what's that litmus test? And then how do you support yourself to show up? Or do you just allow yourself to not show up sometimes when you're really in those tough moments? Because I think we can all relate to that.
A visual that I like to reference, because this is a topic that comes up a lot with students and clients, is something I call a vulnerability dial. Vulnerability is not an on or an off switch. It's not something you turn on and you're vulnerable, or you turn off and you're not vulnerable. There's a lot more nuance to it. And so if we think of vulnerability on a dial, well, I would recommend most people, maybe even businesses, turning it up at least a wee little bit, even just a smidge.
Just a little
a little turn to the right. But it doesn't have to be all the way up at a 10. It's the same thing with secret sauce. You can choose which quadrant to be in, or maybe you have all four, but you're really turning the dial up in foundational, and you're only turning it up just a wee bit in lighthearted. Everything's flexible. Everything can be customized to you. So this really comes into play when we think about hard stuff that we go through. And I think it's really a case-by-case basis of how much do you want to share? How much are you wanting to let people in? And are you also willing to accept people's views on it? And I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. This year I had a miscarriage really early on, chemical pregnancy, five weeks. And I didn't really want to tell people about it. I just kept it to myself and just my husband and my family for months and months. And I felt good with that. And then one morning I woke up and I was like, I think I want to share this. I think I'm ready to share this with the world. And I didn't ever have to come to that decision, but a friend had just recently shared a miscarriage she had gone through, and I really respected her and saw that it was helping people. And so I decided to open up and share that as well. 99.9% love, support. People would never message me before. I mean, it was so beautiful and comforting and just wonderful. And one person, of course, comments and they're like, why do people feel the need to share this? It's attention seeking and all this stuff. I'm like, really? Like, I'm sharing something so personal in the hopes of...
Put down the salt shaker. We don't need that in the wound right now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So that's what I mean by... That was really the first time I'd experienced sharing something that vulnerable or even close to that vulnerable and getting something back that didn't feel great, but that was just one thing. My other example for you is weird. It's weird to say my example. It's like I don't, whenever I talk about this, like I don't even know how to say it. It feels weird introing it, but my dad passed away in early May, and gosh, I didn't want to share it, but my dad had been a really beautiful part of my social media presence, like every now and then, because he lived far away. But I put him on, and he has this British accent, and he dresses all bright, and he has alligator belts, like a little brass alligator with ruby eyes, and wears these colors. I mean, he was a character.
So we're not sure where you got it.
I know,
all.
Right? I'm like,
we're not sure where that came from.
He'd be so proud today, but I mean, that was probably one of the biggest things that's happened to me since showing up on social media and starting in 2015. But once again, it's like the love and the outpouring and the support from people you've never met or talked to before. It's sort of cathartic and therapeutic in a way. So like I said, you can choose what makes sense for you. You don't have to share everything, but I think sometimes when you do choose to, there can be this beautiful return that comes back to you that feels really good.
And I feel like that's such a reminder too of like when we get that authentic for us intuition that maybe you want to share it, either for you to feel the support, feel less alone, but the reminder that there's always going to be someone, whether they message or not, who needed to see you share the thing that's hard for you. Showing up more vulnerably, authentically, there is this part of me that is goofy and I'm equal parts serious, and I'm craving more depth in my connections with my community. I'm craving more depth in the connections on this podcast, which is why it's so fun to get to do this in person. And I'm noticing that every time I kind of open that door and share something that I do authentically feel ready to share or ready to open up about if it was something harder, that's actually where I feel a deeper connection.
Mm-hmm.
It creates connection.
You're breaking down the shield a little bit. You're not hiding. When I say you, it's a general you. You're not hiding behind the tips and the tricks and the here's how to do this or here's my business. It's showing the human side of it, which is scary, but the benefit is exactly what you just mentioned of you feel more connected.
Yeah. So you're in the social media world. Let's say that, right?
Yes.
This is your place. It's your playground. As it relates to showing up authentically, showing up vulnerably, what do you see? What do you forecast for the brands and the people that are really going to stand out in the years to come, even in the next year to come, if we look at that?
We look at the current landscape. Video is the main format. Video is the main vehicle. And in a way, I'm not going to say it came out of nowhere, but it is really amazing to look at how quickly it shifted. TikTok came onto the scene and that exploded during quarantine. And then Instagram was like, yo, we got to get our act together. Let's do some reels. And now
us too.
Yeah. And now it's video is really the most powerful tool. But if we start to kind of peel back the layers a bit on video, I think one of the reasons why it's such a powerful tool is that it does allow for so much more authenticity to come through. You can feel someone's energy through a video, whereas a photo and caption sometimes, but not as much. And so what I love about a platform like TikTok, if we're even comparing it to Reels, someone using their voice and talking to camera is a format that thrives much more than perhaps it does on Reels at the moment. But we're seeing, and this is TikTok's own words, the rise of the everyday creator. And I think that's a powerful thing because it's no longer about the aspirational influencer. It's no longer just about celebrities. People who are just doing regular everyday things are the people we're connecting with and the people gaining followings. Not that that's the be all and all.
Right.
It's a big difference compared to 2017, 2018, 2019 pre-video days. So I think that's going to continue. And I think the more that as personal brands, content creators, service-based business, whatever it is that you are, the more that we can use our voice in our content, the more that is going to last you long term. Because trends are great. Don't get me wrong. I love me some like fun trends and transitions and editing. That's all part of short form video content culture. But I think the more your voice is incorporated into your content, the more that's going to support your longer term goals. So just forecasting into the next year, maybe just me wishful thinking of what I would like to see, but it's people's personalities and energy and vibe coming through the screen via video, but even more specifically by using your voice, by talking to camera, or by adding in voiceover.
Which I didn't even intend to set you up so well to talk about some of the things that you have, some of the ways that you support content creators or aspiring content creators to really do that. So can you talk a little bit about the programs that you offer, what you're excited to offer in the upcoming year to help people just, and I think it's actually brilliant. If this is an area that doesn't feel natural to you, hire someone who's good at it to help you. Take their course, study what they do, and you are so graciously making your brilliant brain available to us in a couple of different ways. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so I will say it's been an interesting year and a whole other topic, which we probably don't have time for, but just in full honesty, I've really been reconstructing my business this year, as in kind
same.
of, yeah, right. Like, whoa, it's been a lot. It's been an interesting year, but really kind of wiping the slate clean and rebuilding my product suite to, in full transparency, make it more sustainable for me. Because as you heard in that video, my soul is tired. There's a lot of reasons for that, business and personal, but I really had to restructure things in order to be a business, but also be a human as well. Yeah. So with that being said, at the moment, I'm very excited to be working on my video editing course, the Video Editing Rodeo. I love that name. Yeehaw! Giddy up. I'm not from Texas, but I love me some Texas.
We're recording this in Texas. Yeah. Sorry to everyone in Texas that is appalled by that accent. Continue.
And what I'm so excited for about this course is that it is the nitty-gritty aspect of video editing. So it's not necessarily the ideas, which I can talk about all day, but I want to give people the tools to say, wait, how do I edit a vlog? How do I create a talking to camera video? How do I do a day in the life? How do I do a simple transition? So it's really geared towards beginners or beginner intermediates who are wanting to hone in on their foundational editing skills to support them now, but also these are skills that you can just take into the future forever. So that's square one. And then it's, in the works. I'm putting it out there as something I will be creating in 2024. But I used to have a group coaching program called the Social Media Saloon. Do you see a pattern here with my Western? That's no longer running, but I might kind of do a revamped version and have a new group coaching program coming in 2024, which I would be so excited for.
Oh my gosh. And here's what I will say. From a standpoint of creative inspiration, entertainment, laughs for days, but also just being the way you're able to balance that with sharing the very real challenges that have come up for you this year. You are one of my favorite people to be connected with online, and getting to sit and have this in-person real life conversation has just been so much fun. I just have one more question.
Yes.
Although I do want you to tell people where they can find you on the interwebs. It'll be linked in the show notes, of course, but tell us that and then we'll wrap this up.
Find me on Instagram and TikTok, Jera Bean, but there is a dot in there. So it's Jera.bean, jerabean.com. And that's where you can find me.
Where did the bean come from?
My mom.
This is a tangent.
I know.
Oh, that's
my
so
mom has called me Jera Bean my whole life. Or JB for short, but no one else calls me that.
You're like, duh, that's actually my middle name. I'm like, I didn't know. I'm so sorry.
Like that. And my middle name's Marie.
I love that.
One of the most,
mine too.
I feel like
yeah. Okay, great. So that's actually not that unique at all.
Not that special.
If your middle name is also Marie,
you are not unique.
Hit us up. We'll start the most bland, not unique club of all time.
Yes.
But okay, so this last question is a chance to just reflect on, you can go back as far as you want, but it's a chance for all of us, myself included, to reflect on something that we've done that maybe we haven't acknowledged ourselves for, a time that we showed up and we were great at something, a time we're just really proud of how we handled something. We just call it your powerhouse moment. And it can literally be anything big or small. But when I ask you, what's a recent powerhouse moment that you want to celebrate publicly now?
Yeah, I love that.
First thing that comes to mind.
I think the first thing that comes to mind would be that I used to have the biggest fear of public speaking. Like, it was intense. There were things that I couldn't do because of that fear. And if I look at myself now, especially within the last year, I'm speaking on stages, I'm doing presentations and classes. And if you told, 2019 Jera or earlier that this is what I do now, she would be like, this is a joke, right? Like there's just absolutely no way that's possible. And I don't think I don't celebrate myself too often, as in I kind of just keep going forward and I don't take a moment to stop and look back and truly appreciate the work I've put in and the skills I've honed and the fears I've overcome. So that would be the first thing that pops into my mind.
I love that. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
Everybody.
Saddle up. Giddy up. Howdy. And on that note,
adios. I'm like, what's a cowboy way to sign off? Ooh, adios.
Yeah, tip of the hat.
Tip of the hat.
Yeah.